Karen, Karen, it's just such a pleasure to get reacquainted with you again after all these years. Yeah, we were kids growing up on the same street together back in the day when we could roam and play freely without any restrictions, really. So I have been a follower of Karen's since we became reacquainted. I'm currently taking a wildlife photography class from her, which is excellent. So with that, Karen, please.
Thank you, Betsy.
You're welcome.
Goodness, the time has passed here. Well, let me go ahead. I'm going to start with sharing my screen, and then I'll kind of cover. You got the screen?
Yep.
See my cute little fox? Okay.
Yep.
So, as I said, I'm originally from Santa Rosa, and Betsy and I, 2 houses apart. I think our parents moved into the homes within a month of each other, and her sister and I were like best buddies. We were a month apart in age, and Santa Rosa was certainly a different place, but my brother has lived there all his life. My parents moved there, and when they moved on to Nebraska Drive, that was basically the only home I ever knew, and they lived there for over 50 years. So it's a pleasure to be invited to speak to you all and share my passion for wildlife and nature photography. So tonight I'm going to talk about some tips for you in making better wildlife and nature photography. I know that some of you probably aren't doing wildlife, but maybe you like to go out and see it. So some of these tips may actually apply to that. And some of the tips, if you happen to be even a portrait photographer or a landscape photographer, there will be some images and some things particular to that as well. So for the Zoom, what I'd like to do is, you're already on mute, so if you want to ask questions, you can use the chat box. And as I get to the break, I will, right after the break, I'll answer questions. And then at the end of the presentation, that way it'll make it kind of easier. Unless you have a burning question, and no problem, just unmute yourself and ask away, okay? And if you can have your iPhones near you, probably do, but if you don't, if you can locate it in the break, because that's something I'd like to share with you all. I think you'll have some fun with it. And I'll go ahead and get started.
Excuse me?
Yes.
We do not have the chat function.
Oh, okay. Well, then when we get to right after the break, if that's all right with you all, we'll go ahead and stop and I can take questions. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. So a camera is a tool for learning.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
I don't have an iPhone. I have a smartphone, but not an iPhone.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to share it from the iPhone because, again, most of the people have this, but you can also look on your camera or on your phone and you may be able to locate something similar to what I'm going to describe, okay? Okay, so camera is a tool for learning how to see without a camera. This image was taken up in the Tetons, and I want you to kind of just remember this because I'm going to bring attention to it later in a little bit of a conversation about wildlife photography. So this was taken very early one morning as the sun was coming up along Moulton Barn, if you all know where that is, and if not, it's just a beautiful area with a Moulton Barn, which is quite famous, probably the most photographed barn in the world. So a little bit about myself. I'm a wildlife and nature photographer. I started doing digital photography it's 2006, so 14 years ago. And I took classes when I started. When I was much younger, I did a lot of film photography. I learned how to process black and white. I actually printed color photography as well, did a lot of different things with photography. But basically, what I was doing at that time was street photography. At about 12 years ago, I really discovered wildlife and bird photography. Didn't know a lot about what I was doing. I didn't know what a grebe was or an egret. I know it was a bird, but since then, I think I've come a long ways. Still always more and more to learn. But I wanted to share with you a little bit about what my road has been. I was in retail management. I worked for Bed Bath & Beyond for 14 years before I left. And I made the decision to follow my dream of photography. It's been almost 6 years now, and it has been the best decision I've ever made. I knew I wanted to be a photographer when I was 17, and I got a scholarship to UC Santa Barbara, and I used to go over to Brooks Institute. Some of you may remember Brooks Institute, and I used to walk around the campus, and I remember coming home and asking my folks, gee, I'd really like to go to Brooks. Of course, that idea didn't go over too well. It was like, you want to be a photographer? You crazy? So anyways, long story short, I came around full circle, and 6 years ago, I decided to make that leap. I didn't have anything planned. I had ideas, but nothing concrete. A week after I left my job, I was offered a position at one of the local photography stores, teaching photography and leading workshops. And since then, it's expanded, and I have my own company now, and I lead my own workshops along with teaching classes, as you notice at Sammy's Cameras, which is the largest camera stores in LA. And I also teach at Tuttle Cameras in Long Beach. And I do a lot of speaking as well as teaching in different capacities along the way. In 2018, I was selected in the Wildlife Photographer of the Year contest, which is the largest wildlife contest in the world. And I was and it's also what was really exciting about it. It's my peers, right? It's not going to, I'm not competing against, say, portraiture. It's strictly wildlife photography. And out of 46,000 images, mine was selected as a highly commended. And I went to London for that event. It was spectacular. In 2019, one of my images was in the World Economic Summit in Davos, Switzerland, although we boycotted that, so we didn't get to see it, but that's okay. And then 2019, there was an article written, and this 85, I don't know how they picked me, but 85 of the best wildlife photographers. And 2017, another major event happened, and that was the National Audubon. I was the professional runner-up in the contest, so out of one of the top 5 awards in that contest. So I've been fortunate. I've put a lot of time into it and a lot of effort, and we'll talk about that later as we go, but it's been really a joy. I've been published in a number of magazines, as you can see here, and my work's been exhibited in Armenia. I teach the wildlife and bird photography, and I lead workshops. And I've gone to Kenya, Tetons, Bosque, del Apache in New Mexico. I was to leave for Costa Rica 3 days before COVID, and I was so fortunate that we didn't go, even though it was a very difficult decision, because literally I was packed and ready to go. And so I pulled the plug on that trip, and it was the best decision, because we literally would have been there and possibly having to quarantine there. There were no flights out. All of our flights would have been, it would have been such a trip. So here I am, being quiet and down in San Pedro. So here we go. So tip number 1, do your research before you go out. Now, a lot of people think, oh, we'll just go out and take pictures, and that's fine as well. But if you really want to get exciting wildlife pictures, you need to figure out some information. Where are you going? Are you going local or out of area? So you should prepare and plan for that. What is your subject? What are you going to shoot? Are you going for the beauty and landscapes? Are you going for the culture? Are you going for an iconic location? What animals or birds might you expect to see? And that goes for when I'm shooting locally, as well as when I'm going on a trip. What lenses and cameras will I need? Keep it simple. You can only shoot, guys, with 1 camera at a time. So I have been out there with people that have had 3 cameras hanging around their neck. I typically bring 1. I may, depending on how far I am from the car, I may have a second one with me, a landscape type lens, and then I'll have my wildlife lens. I recommend buying a bird book or a wildlife book that will help you determine and plan your photography, because it'll help you identify behaviors as well as the animals themselves. For example, when we went to Kenya, provided wildlife books for everybody because the animals are different. So it was fun to check off, oh, we saw this, we saw that, and also there's descriptions on behavior. In all photography, great photography is the result of preparation and luck. So what time is sunrise and sunset? Why do I ask that? Because that's the time when you most likely will get the best animal pictures. They like to get up in the morning, and what do they like to do? They like to eat, just like us. And they like to feed, and that golden light in the evening, it's a great time. It's a long day, yes, but getting up early and staying up late is really part of the game when you're doing wildlife photography. Photography itself, the word photography, is a combination of the Greek root words photo, meaning light, and graphia, meaning writing or drawing. Thus, photography literally means writing or drawing with light. This might look familiar. So it is all about the light. It doesn't have to be sunlight. It can be foggy. It can be cloudy. It can be raining even. But no matter what type of photography we do, it is about the light. This is taken in Boston, Apache in New Mexico in the very early morning, just as the sun came up. The actual water here is still frozen. It's icy, and this bird was almost like, he was going to skate. He needed a pair of skates. And again, it's all about the light. This is taken in one of my favorite places to photograph. This is in the Grand Teton National Park. This was at Schwabacker's Landing, which is a spectacular place to go for sunrise. And what's interesting is probably 2 minutes before this light hit, it was overcast and you don't see the light. It's like somebody flips a switch and the light lights up the tips of the mountains and then comes down as you watch the sunrise. This was one of the most beautiful mornings I have ever seen there, and it was amazing. And this was an early morning with my foxes, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute. But this was just as the sun came up and they were in the sun and just getting cleaned up. This is a midday shot in the Tetons. And again, in this situation, I felt that because it was a little bit more contrasty and dramatic, it was nice to create a picture that I went to black and white. So, but the reason is because I didn't know that birds typically fly into the wind. So if it's to your back, they're going to fly at you. And guess what? You'll suddenly have pictures of birds with their wings and they're flying. So something for you all to know. Look for opportunities to change your images by the direction that you are standing. Use front light, side light, and back light to convey emotion in your wildlife image. And I'm going to be showing you examples of these, but I wanted to kind of state some of these things that you'll remember this. In harsh midday light, look for places to shoot that have shade. Watch for contrasting light on animals and expose for the bright light to create dramatic contrast. So again, you can certainly shoot in bright light, but you need to expose properly, especially if you have a white bird, okay? Alternatively, shooting details like a close-up of an animal's face in midday light will work well because you're getting the details. Just like shooting out there, you might be you're looking for animals and there's nothing there, and you turn around and there's a beautiful tree or there's a beautiful leaves or plants. That's when you shoot those details. If you don't see animals, look around for other opportunities. I often end up with landscapes when I set out to shoot wildlife. Be ready. And that's when that camera, the second camera, is handy. When you have a landscape lens on that, you're ready to shoot something different, and that really helps. Again, this was in Bosque, the early morning light. And it's just so important because if they were going the other direction and if you were shooting either into the light, you'd have a shade. This picture, you see their eyes nice and sharp.
Yeah.
This happened, this was recently, probably about 2 weeks ago, and I was out shooting peregrine falcons. It was early morning and it was blustery. It was just an odd morning. But I saw the lighthouse and that dappled light, and it was so interesting. And I happened to just see this. I wasn't there to shoot like the lighthouse, but it worked really well. So again, look around. Not only do you want to, when you're out there shooting wildlife, you want to look around to see what's coming up behind you, but again, there might be something else to shoot as well, especially when the animals aren't there. This was shot in the midday, and I mentioned earlier, just kind of indicated, you really need to be careful on your exposure with white birds. White birds, the biggest mistake I see in bird photography is the fact that we blow out our white. And this picture, actually, the detail is all there. I've printed this many times. It looks a little light here, but it actually, that you want to make sure that you are exposing correctly for the white. If you don't have details, and again, the highlights, the little blinkies, you know, that you have on your camera, it's a great tool to check along with your histogram. And I will always check pictures. If I'm shooting, especially whites, I'm going to take a look at the histogram and the blinkies, the highlights, to make sure that I'm not overexposing, because you can't get it back if you've clipped it and it's overexposed. You know, you've lost it. This image was one of my first images that was published. This was actually in National Geographic, and it was just a surprise. I submitted just on a lark late at night and never expected it to get printed. But this was kind of cool. This was at Zion, and it's hard to see, but there's actually a figure out way the heck walking through the Narrows. And these are grebes in the early morning. So when you guys mentioned the grebes up there, I'm like, oh, I want to go. They're so cool to watch, and just beautiful, you know, watching that light. It's all about the light. I can't emphasize that. You guys know it. You're all photographers. It truly, if we don't pay attention to the light, it doesn't mean that you have to have, you know, you can work with the light. You can use it to mold your subject. So it's paying attention to it. When I come up to a spot and I'm going to shoot, I'm looking to see where my light is. What do I want to shoot? How do I want to shoot it? This was an early morning in the Tetons, and it has, yes, it has been manipulated a little bit, but trust me, it's not much on this. What I did is I did more of the texture detail on it, but this was a foggy morning in the Tetons, and I was looking for elk, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see any moose, but I did see this. And by using that, and I actually printed on a handmade textured paper, and it's beautiful. It really turned out well. This is an IBIS, and this is another form of my photography. I actually do some, I play, as I call it. This is a manipulated image with several different images combined. So it's always fun to try new things, guys, especially when we're home now. You know, it's nice to be able to use YouTube and go, oh, let me try this. Let me try that. Why not, right? This picture is a picture taken at Mammoth in Yellowstone. And the ironic part, oops, excuse me, the ironic part about this image is that this is almost straight out of the camera. There was nothing done to it, nothing. I mean, this is practically identical to the raw. And I submitted it to the Orange County Fair, and it received first place, but I had submitted it as a landscape, and they moved it to manipulated. And I was like, I was hesitant to tell them because I was afraid they'd take the first place away. But, you know, it just sometimes, I saw this, you know how, and you guys all know what that's like. You look at something and it just speaks to you. Don't take just one picture. Do a horizontal, do a vertical, get closer, get lower, get higher, take, you know, play with it. But I knew that there was something special when I was photographing this. Another option, and when you're out and about or you're traveling to a place that you haven't been to, hire a local to show you around. We went up to Alaska with another couple, and they're photographers, not wildlife. My husband, he's maybe a spotter, if you know, but he loves to see it. And we went up, we took one of the planes over to Chickaga Island and photographed the bear. And it was so much fun because, number one, I didn't have to do the spotting. Basically, I mean, I did, but I wasn't, you know, I wasn't being paid to look for the animals for somebody else. I wasn't driving and having to look for animals while I was driving. And we got to see something like this with somebody that's really knowledgeable and knows the area. So, other information that I go out with, okay, when is it high or low tide? If I'm doing Bolsa Chica, the wetlands, I want to know when the tide's in and out. Why? When are the birds there? When are they feeding? What kind of birds are there and going to be feeding? When is it full moon? This was taken in Boston, Apache in New Mexico at about 5:30 in the morning. It was an early morning, but it was also a blue sky. It's not manipulated. This is absolutely what I saw, with the exception of the crop, but this is exactly the picture. Knowing what you're going to see and knowing what their behavior is also, you know, it's just extremely important. And if you're out someplace, for example, did you all know that the bison cause the most injuries and deaths in Yellowstone? It's not a bear, it's the bison. So knowing that, no, I wasn't out of the car, and I wasn't planning on getting out of the car to take this, you know, boy's picture. And this is taken here in San Pedro, and one of my favorite subjects to photograph. I've been shooting the red foxes here for the past 10 years. And seeing their behaviors and studying them and watching them, it's been just such a joy. Aww. This picture was actually taken up in the Grand Tetons of red foxes, and they're furrier, as you can tell. That's mom on the top, and you can see how thick her fur is. This was taken in September. She had, what were they? There was, I think it was 7 kits that time, and she was a very busy mom. Might have been, excuse me, it was May. It was May, it wasn't September. But this picture won one of the honorable mentions for the National Park Contest. It was so cute. So checking resources. If you're going to do wildlife, you want to know what's the best time. If you don't know, find out before you go. You don't, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but if you wanted to shoot bear, you're not going to go to Yellowstone in December to see bear. You know, they're going to be hibernating. So when is the best time? If you guys go to Tetons, and if you look on their website now and the park pages and information on Facebook, you're going to see all kinds of pictures of a bear known as 399. She's probably one of the most famous bears in the world, and 399 is 24 years old. She's had 17 cubs, and this year she came out with 4 cubs of the year, they're called koi. 4. She had 4 babies that she's walking around the park with at 24 years old. So she's an old girl, but she's having babies still. So how exciting is that? I look at Audubon meetings. If you are interested in birds, go to Audubon meetings. They are birders. There's a difference between birders and bird photographers, but I gotta tell you guys, if you want information on where to see birds, learn about their behaviors, what they feed, when they mate, how they nest. Audubon is awesome, and it's so much to learn. It's always a pleasure when I go there. I also look on Facebook pages for different areas and ask, you know, throw it out there on your Facebook page. Well, you know, what should I look for if I'm going to Grand Tetons? And you're going to get lots of information. Googling best time to visit. So those resources for you, no matter where you are, Sonoma County and Santa Rosa, take a look and see what's out there, because sometimes you don't hear about it. And it's great because you guys are sharing a lot of information about where to go, and you do trips, which is awesome. I wish I had a group like that here. So when do the young emerge from the dens, nests, and burrows? Okay, so knowing that, I went out to see the burrowing owls, and then my challenge was waiting for them to turn their little heads and look at me. So I'm down on the ground, and I probably took 100 pictures to get one where almost all of them were looking at me. I mean, when you have that many chicks, plus, you know, they're timid too. They hear the shutter and they get nervous. So it was very exciting. And this is in the Tetons.
Oh.
And I had one of my workshops going on. We had a guide. We use eco-tours. We do a day trip with them right at the beginning because they can, I'm well connected with them over the years. And so they're very helpful on, oh, this is where we're seeing 399. And they also know where the foxes are, if there's been sightings or owls or whatever. So they're great, again, a great resource. But we went out in the group with eco-tours and gotten out of the vehicle. And this mom and her cubs, she actually had 2 cubs. She came up out of the field and we couldn't move. We had to stay where we were. And she went between our vehicle and another one and walked straight on through. And we just stood there waiting. She's been around a lot. You can actually, the position she's in, you don't see her big collar. She is collared. And another well-known bear, 6'10". And this was in my neck of the woods with the kids.
Oh.
So just watching, you know, again, watching them for many, 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 many hours. Now, peregrines. Okay, so peregrines, we have 2 locations within 15 minutes of my house. One's like 5 minutes and one's like another, I'd say 15 to the other location. We have been watching the peregrines. They've been nesting here for many years. And there's the 2 different locations that they nest. We watch them, meaning a lot of photographers are watching, but I have the good fortune of being so close to them. But we watch them in February and we see them mate. And then when we see them kind of disappear, we know that they're done mating and we have a countdown. We can kind of guesstimate how many days it's going to be that they will be on the eggs, have chicks, and then from that point, having those chicks fledge because they're on the rocks, they're hidden below on the cliffs. But when the chicks fledge, this is kind of what you can get. First, they'll hop. They fly very short distances, and then they start flying a little bit further and further. The moms and dad come and feed them, and they drop the food off on the cliffs. Pretty soon, they start to take the parents will catch the birds, which is what they eat, and they will bring them up into the sky, and the chicks will fly up and do a food exchange. Once they've mastered that, the chicks will pretty much be on their own. For those of you that don't know much about peregrines, I've learned all this over these last few years, the peregrine falcons are the fastest birds in North America. When they are in a full stoop, meaning they're in a full dive, they can go up to 240 miles an hour. And I've got to tell you, I've seen them do it and right nearby, and takes your breath away to see them go that fast. It's just like, whoa, it's truly amazing. This was taken several weeks ago. These chicks are now getting ready. They're starting to try the food exchanges, and in just a short time, they're going to be on their own. So again, knowing when the animals breed, what their habitat is, what they like to eat, those are all factors that are the research in advance when you're going to shoot. It helps you do a better job of getting the pictures that you want. This was taken at Bolsa Chica Wetlands, which is near Huntington Beach. It's about 40 minutes from where I live. And there are numerous birds, migratory birds that pass through there. You've got great egrets, you've got the snowy egrets, herons, you've got falcons, you've got all kinds of neat stuff. And watching these birds, you know, you have to know what they're going to do. And I know you kind of get to know the behavior of an egret and know when they're going to plunge to get a fish, just by watching them. So luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So this is taken in Kenya, and knowing that the animals like to travel in troops. You see all kinds in this particular location. There was probably 20 more baboons to the left, and then you see the little babies around. One's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. So again, this is just another example. because you can play with your pictures. You don't have to have straight on National Geographic type photography. Initially, when I started wildlife photography, everything I did was basically to the ethic of National Geographic, which is what you see is what you get. I don't know if you realize that when images are taken for National Geographic, everything is examined. The picture before, the picture after, to make sure that there have been no changes. Nothing has been altered. The cards go in to National Geographic and they review them. It's not like, oh, here's my picture, thank you very much. They're very protective. I had a great opportunity to meet the former editor-in-chief for National Geographic, and he told all kinds of stories. I mean, he basically said that his job working for National Geographic was to become the expert in whatever subject it was, whatever article, because he was the final proof of that article before it was published. And so those images were scrutinized just like every word that is written for an article. So it's very interesting. So as I said, my ethic was really, okay, this is what I do. There's nothing altered. Even scared to do things like minimal, like sharpening. But as I've learned and become more confident and know more about photography, you can do those things just like you did if you were doing darkroom. You can dodge, you can burn, you can remove dust spots. But you need to look carefully if you're entering a contest as to what you can and can't do. Okay, very important thing. And you can be, and you can be creative as you want. It's how many of you, we've all done it at some point, and I've been with some put it this way, one of the most renowned wildlife photographers, and he was all excited because there was something exciting happening up in Grand Tetons, and he left his cards back in the car and had to walk back. We were out, we'd walked a distance and had to run back. So it made me feel good that he did it, because it's like, oh good, I'm not the only bonehead that'll forget something. But if you get yourself ready to go the day before, get everything organized, figure out how you're going to carry your gear if you're going to be out in the field, what's the best way for you to handle it. Travel as light as possible. You can, as I said, you can only use one camera at a time. Be ready. So typically I recommend a long lens and a landscape lens for my trips and outings, okay? Each camera should be ready to go when I head out. So it's charged, it's clean, the ISO settings are ready. Now this sounds silly, but seriously, you want to, because how many times, and I'm sure many of you have had this happen, you get to the site and there's something you want to shoot immediately and you're like scrambling because you're not ready. It's so important to have your camera gear ready for the early morning light. I use auto ISO so that I've got a range and I can get out of that car and start shooting right away. Bring extra charged batteries and cards and a lens cleaner. Try not to change lenses in the field. You can get dirt on your sensor, and that's true for Africa as well as just shooting locally. So I always suggest don't try changing lenses out there in the field. When you pull up to your location, be ready to shoot. Again, is everything ready to go? And chimp right after your first couple of shots to make sure you're good to go. You haven't done a dial, done something strange just by accident. So just check on the back of your camera, make sure you're good, and then don't chimp until you come home. So here we are. This is early morning. This was shooting through some foliage in the front. That's why there's that yellow. It was just shooting through the flowers. And I shot this 2 nights ago, and this is the Peregrines, and this was at the 800 millimeters, and they were moving fast. Again, Peregrines move very quickly. So tip number 3, I suggest take the cliche picture and then go for different. So for example, the Peregrine, when you arrive, he's sitting on a cliff, maybe he's preening, maybe he's fluffing his wings. Take those pictures and then think about what picture can you compose? Can you get a Peregrine backlit eating a bird at sunset? And I'm going to show you a picture in a little while that I took just the other night. I've taken lots of early morning shots of Peregrines. Okay, so I sat home and I go, what am I going to do that's different? How do I make a different image? And that's what I strive for now. After I've gotten over the Peregrine sitting on the rock and I was so excited because it was close, how can I make it better? How can I make it different? So trying different angles, getting low, or shooting from a higher vantage point. With animals, it's really important to think about trying to get at eye level with them. When you look down, it doesn't have that same emotional connection, and you want to get the catch lights in the eyes of the animals. Again, be creative with your imagery. You can do slow shutter, action shots, behavior that is unusual, different light, and then again, you can convert to black and white. So those are all options for you as you're doing it. I do recommend, and I'm going to show you some things with a video and iPhone. What's the best camera you have? The one that's with you. So if it happens to be an iPhone, there's opportunities even for wildlife, believe it or not. And I used to say no. I'm waiting for the iPhone, by the way, just so you know. I'm waiting for an iPhone with a 600mm lens. Just letting you know. So when that happens, we're all going to be with our little tiny iPhones. Look at your backgrounds. Keep them clean to isolate the subject. We'll show you some of that. So again, this is Peregrine in flight. Pretty background. I mean, it was nice. It was nice because it's blurry, and we'll get to that in a minute. But here's the picture with the other evening. Here's a peregrine coming in with a bird, and it's at sunset with a little bit of rim light. But it was, you know, just something different. Is it better than the other one? Not, where'd it go? Not necessarily. It's just different. This was taken with an iPhone. Wow. In Kenya, and then I just turned it into a black and white. Like you said, you're going up different roads in Sonoma County, and you're out there and you see something exciting, and you don't want to get out of the car because maybe you're going to spook it. Maybe it's a deer or it's a hawk sitting on the fence. If you have a travel pillow, keep it in your car. You can use that to stabilize your camera and your lens and just set it on the window. Easy. If you're traveling, it's another option, because if you're on safari, you won't have to bring a beanbag. You can just, again, use a travel pillow so when you're flying for a gazillion hours to get there, when you get there, you have another use for your travel pillow. Put everything in the same place each time you pull it out. I cannot tell you how many times on a trip I've had somebody say, oh no, we've gone out, say in the Tetons, we've left the hotel, we're out in the field. Oh no, I forgot my cards. Oh no, I forgot my batteries. But guess what? They just put them in a different pocket. So try to get into the habit, train yourself to put your stuff in the same pockets, same place every time. How boring is that? But you know what? You'll be able to find it easily, and that's half the game, right? This was taken with an iPhone. Now, remember the picture I showed you in the beginning? The first one that I said was taken early morning. Okay, you couldn't see the barn. It was foggy, and I brought the gang out to see Moulton Barn because this is one of the famous places. No barn, it's foggy, it's no light. And the best part in the morning is to see this glorious light. So I had my folks walking down the road, had the back behind us was the scene that you saw, and we were taking pictures, and they got a little ways down there, and I looked back and I went, oh my God, it's lifted, the light, it's there. And this light doesn't last more than 20 minutes, where you get that really glorious, where the wood just starts to pop and you get great light. So had everybody, I mean, I'm like, hurry, come back. And so we got some beautiful light in the Tetons, but that's how quickly it changes. Now this is taken in Kenya, and again, this knowing behaviors of animals and watching this line was sitting there, just sitting, and I saw it zoom in, just like a cat at home saw something, right? And their eyes kind of squint, and you know they're going to go do something, and it's gonna move, it's gonna run. So I was prepared for it. And this again in Kenya, and this was a difficult shot because it was very late, and the light was really dropping. But this kitten was just so precious. So, and again, that same. So you don't always have to go far to do your pictures. So you guys up there have some amazing places, as you already know. Places like, you know, Howarth Park. Betsy, we remember Howarth Park well. And there's Bartholomew Regional Park, Laguna de Santa Rosa, Taylor Mountain. If you want to practice animal behavior and practice skills with that, I love Safari West. And I'm going to show you in a moment some pictures that I took there. And you wouldn't know that I wasn't in Africa. Practicing around your neighborhood, I highly recommend, if you're going to do wildlife photography, walk around the hood. Just get out of your house and walk around. You'll see birds, for sure you'll see some birds. And you never know what else you'll see. And you can do leaders and so forth, but there's definitely, you don't have to go to Kenya to get pictures. If you attend Audubon or Sierra Club meetings, you can learn a lot about what and where wildlife and birds are that people are seeing. And again, as I mentioned, you may not be a birder, but you can learn a lot from the birders. Take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints, kill nothing but time. And so I just want to remind everybody, as you're out there, is using ethical photography. So what that means to me is that we don't bait the animals, we don't put food. I can tell you, living here in San Pedro, and I know that a lot of people thought it was a good thing, you know, they thought they were being kind to the animals to feed the foxes, and it just broke my heart. I did not share the picture, and if you go to my Facebook page, I'm sure if you scrolled back, you'd find it, but I ended up doing a whole series of images, not happy images. One of the animals, one of the kits, which is one of the young, was killed. It was hit by a car. And honestly, I just think they are so used to people that things don't scare them that should. We should scare them. We're their greatest, you know, we're their great, should be their greatest fear. So anyways, but back to, we just feel strongly we should not try to feed the animals. Bird calls, you know, I have an app, I have it on my phone, and there have been times when I used it, and I've learned, you know, that there's times when you don't use it. So you can purchase the bird calls. There's Sibley birds, and you can buy it for your phones, but don't use it when there's babies, because mom is very protective, and the nests are typically designed so there's no predators. When they hear the birds, a predator bird or a predator animal are smart enough to know that's where a nest is, and it's happened more than one time when the babies have gotten killed due to something like that. So be very cognizant of that use of a bird call. So again, just a reminder, you're visiting their home, so you know, they're not visiting ours, and we just need to be cognizant of that. So this was taken at Safari West.
Oh.
So isn't it, I mean, I just love it. It was just fun because it's, these animals, yes, they are caged. Yes, they are, you know, they're not wild, but how cool is that we can go there? It's a great place, and you can practice. If you're going on safari, it's a great place to practice. The zoos, I love LA Zoo for that reason. This is taken at Safari West. I wish my pictures of the cheetahs in Kenya were as nice as this. So wherever you go, become a part of you somehow. So again, no matter where you, now when you're using your camera, is pay attention to your background. And I heard somebody speak many years ago, and we've gotten to be friends, and she leads workshops. She actually lives in Africa now, at least half the year. And she said something that, and it really hit home when I went to Africa. So I'll share this because you know, I was so excited. You get there, oh my God, there's a lion that's in the wild, right? It's walking in the grass. There's a leopard. There's a cheetah. It's so exciting that everything you've learned about photography goes right out of your head. Meaning that you don't compose the pictures. You just start taking pictures like a mad person because, oh my God, there they are. So this, what Piper said, her name is Piper McKay, if you've heard of her, she's wonderful, very, very gifted photographer. She said, you know, she did the same thing, but she learned pay attention to the background. And that is the first thing I do when I go to a location is, what does my background look like? Because my foreground and my subject is not going to turn out well, guys, if the background isn't right. Sometimes it's just moving a foot to the left, a foot to the right, get higher or lower, but it's not going to work if it's wrong. So this picture here was taken down at San Joaquin. It's a place in Orange County. And this is the image that went to the Wildlife Photographer of the Year contest that placed. And I saw this. When I saw it, I obviously didn't know it would go that far in the contest, but I knew that this image, as soon as I hit the shutter, I knew I had something really special. And it was just having that kind of a high key effect, but that's how it was. Again, out of the camera. I sharpened it because it was a raw, but that was it. There was nothing else done on this picture. And this is another high key picture taken at Bolsa Chica. But again, what's my background look like? What is my, you know, I'm looking at my background before I compose my picture. So I recommend thinking about that, particularly when you're shooting wildlife, because if it doesn't work, your image, I don't care how great the capture is of the animal, it won't work. And sometimes, you know, this is nice. I was happy to get this, but I will tell you that I kind of try to steer away from just blue skies. I mean, I'm not going to complain, but blue sky, as it was blue skies. But if you can get some clouds, it's always nice without photoshopping. This was taken in Boston, Apache, and this went to in fact, this year it was, went to the finals. It didn't win, of the Wildlife Photographer of the Year contest. This image, I took about 100 different images of this location. I saw the light with the reeds and the plants, and it just captured me. It was at sunrise, and you know, birds, just like, and animals, I can write them all kinds of memos, but they never listen. And in this example, you can't have the animals clustered up, right? You can't have the birds clustered up, because if they're in front of each other, it's just a big lump. So you have to think, oh, I've got to wait till they separate. I have another really pretty image, and I didn't throw it in, I don't think. But anyways, there's a little duck that came into the picture in the background, but where his beak is, it looks like it gives the illusion that he's poking the butt of the sandhill crane. It just doesn't look good. But the rest of it was really cool. So I was like, oh, I could always Photoshop it out, but my goal is to have it be that National Geographic kind of presentation. So this was just cropped, but I worked the image. I worked the image sideways, up, down, trying to make the composition, you know, and make it work. I use Aperture Priority for that. Again, you can use manual. Yes, you can use shutter. You can even use just program. I use Aperture because I want to control my background first and foremost. That is my mode of operation. I use Aperture probably 90% in manual, the other 10. Now, of course, people say, oh, well, you can, you know, why does it matter? You can do manual and control Aperture. Yes, it's just the way I work with it, and you can choose to do manual, but most importantly, determine your background before you do your subject, okay? Eye level, yes. And again, shooting down on an animal doesn't create that connection. And what you want to do in wildlife photography and bird photography is you want to create a connection with the viewer. That's what makes it special. This elephant was taken at Daniel Sheldrick's trust in Kenya. These animals have been rescued. Their parents have been killed. And this was such a special place to go. But this little guy, I just wanted to bring him home, but he wouldn't fit in my suitcase. So I did love him though. But anyways, I love looking at him at eye level. And this is a peregrine. And this is such unusual behavior last year. The peregrines got into this habit of bathing in the puddles at this park where they're situated. So there were the water puddles from when they watered the grass, and then the peregrines would come down and take these crazy baths in them. So so many photographers photographed them, and you had to get lucky because you had to get there in time to photograph them before they took off and get in the right angle, blah, blah, blah. But this was pretty cool to get at an eye level, laying on the grass, get a picture of a peregrine doing that and doing the shake. And this was taken recently, actually right before COVID, I should say. So it's been over 100 days, hasn't it, guys? Wow. Anyways, this was great horned owl babies. And I heard about them, so went to see them in the early morning. And 2 of the babies were down on the ground. And it was scary because they actually, we called the park people to tell them they were there, and they came. Well, the guy spooked it, and it went out into the street because it was right by a street, and we all thought it was going to get hit. It was horrible. So anyways, came back, and the park person said, "I'm done moving these birds," and he left, and the 2 chicks were still down on the ground. So I went and got a towel, and a friend of mine, we both put them back up into the tree, into the crook of the tree, and they climbed themselves. They went back up the tree, but it was scary. But this was a picture where the baby was under the wing of a sibling. But again, the difference, having it eye level versus looking down on him or looking up. Here's another one when he was on the ground, and again, laying on the ground to get that picture. Okay, so bears. Well, I'll tell you this story just because it's it's one of those wildlife stories that you just go, yeah, this is great. Now, as I mentioned, we went to Alaska and we flew over to Chichagof Island, which is known for the bears. And when we flew over and you land, and then the guide that we had to go, they leave their bear spray hidden on the island. And so she went to look for the bear spray, and we're standing there kind of nervous, thinking, oh my goodness. Well, she comes back and goes, I can't find the bear spray. Somebody's taken it. And we're like, what? Well, we'll see what happens. So let's just walk up the trail. Meanwhile, my heart's like pitter patter. And one of the things that we were told before we flew over to the island was don't bring, sorry about that. Maybe my husband will answer that. He said, the guide said, do not bring anything with fragrance. Do not bring any food. Don't bring anything that smells like food with you. So my girlfriend and I, we unloaded like lipstick, any cosmetic stuff was unloaded out of our purse, any gum, anything like that. So we left it all on the mainland and then flew over. And we see this beautiful bear, and he's coming down this waterfall towards us. Okay, that's cool. So we're photographing, but he continues to get closer. He gets closer. And our guide at this point, oh, wait, let me back up. I forgot. Okay, the bear spray story, part of it. We didn't have bear spray. Well, just when we got to the waterfall, there was another group leaving. So they kindly gave us their bear spray. Okay, so we had the can of bear spray at this point. Thank you, God. Because the bear just kept coming towards us, and he got about this distance. And then at this point, he lifts his nose out of the water, sniffs, and I swear to God, I had my 500 millimeter. He was like looking right at me. I mean, I was just looking at him going, wow. The guide is going, stay together, move together, move together. She's pulling up the bear spray. She's got her arms out, ready to pull the plug on the bear spray. And my husband walks over and says, whispers, I have a chili dog wrapper in my pants. I go, you have what? We're going to die. I'm like, you need to go stand somewhere else. No, I didn't say that. I was thinking it though. Anyways, I'm going, oh my God almighty, we're going to be dead out here with this bear, and I know now that that's, he's smelling, he's looking at us like, tasty morsel. And I'm like, who in God's name, who brings, chili dog wrappers in their pockets? Anyways, just about the time when I'm thinking our lives are about ready to end, another bear he starts looking the other way and no longer looking at us, but he's close, but he's looking across on the other side, and another bear, a big male, comes out of the woods, and he decides to leave. So he left us in peace. And about that time, as soon as he left, we went the other way. So my husband's new name is Chili Dog, and we survived. But just know what you should and shouldn't do. Yeah. He was trying to kill us all, I swear. So the more you know about the animals, the better your pictures will be. So learning about the animals and birds where you are going. So no matter where you're going, find out. As I said, buy a bird book to travel with. It's fun and it's also informative. Same with the wildlife books. You can learn a lot about their behaviors, which will help you get much better pictures. You can also get them on your iPhone or whatever phones you have. You can actually buy the apps and load them on your phone, which is kind of handy. It also has the bird calls, so you can actually hear what a bird's going to sound like. So something to keep in mind, the Sibley's, Audubon, Smithsonian all have apps that you can download on your phone. And it's very, very helpful because it'll give you a description what a male bird looks like. Because guess what? The male birds all look really, really pretty. And the female birds a lot of times aren't so pretty. I don't know why that is. And then the birds like the peregrines, the bigger birds are the females. Isn't that nice, ladies? It's just not fair. So yeah, it's like the peacocks. If you've seen the female peacocks, they don't have those beautiful feathers. So, but the more you get to know, but the bird books will describe what a male and female and a juvenile looks like if it's a good one. And as I said, local Audubon meetings are invaluable. We'll teach you about the birds and where to locate them. And knowing about the animals, once again, here's an example. The giraffes, beautiful, beautiful animals. Guess what? Giraffes cannot bend their necks. I don't know if y'all knew that. So they have to spread their legs apart in order to take a drink. So this picture is kind of cool because you see that little swish of the water where the giraffe had spread his legs down, and we saw him going down. We couldn't even see that there was water there, but we guessed that there was water when he did that. So we were able to photograph him. So as I said, arriving early and staying late, not always the most popular thing when I do my classes. People go, what? What do you mean get early? Like 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock? No, sunrise. So here's the example that I was saying I wanted to get something where the bird was backlit, it's sunset, and this was taken a couple nights ago, and it just popped, you know, because this wouldn't have been, I mean, you can go, oh, it's gross, but it's the reality. They eat birds. This is what they feed on, but it just really was a different look at a peregrine. This is a peregrine chick. It doesn't have like the body and the chest of the adults is much creamier white. And that's a female. She's a big girl. So again, just like in humans, if you know this, yawns tend to come in too. So if you see an animal such as a lion having a big yawn, keep your camera. If you miss the first yawn, guess what? You'll get a second one. Kind of like people. And the animals, this was at David Sheldrick. So I thought we'd stop here for a minute and give you guys time to think of any questions. You want to take like 10 minutes? Would that work? Or is that too soon? Are you guys good with that?
Sounds good.
Okay, I think I will go ahead and start here. And let me first ask questions. Did anybody have any questions?
Lots of questions.
Well, I don't know if I have the answer, but no. Go ahead. Ask them.
Well, you are fabulous on your separation. I mean, on everything, but separation really impressed me. And not just separation of subject, but between the subject you're photographing and the background,
yes,
the bokeh that you get.
Yes.
And I know, of course, part of that is the aperture that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. I guess my question is, how much is the aperture? Also, because your lighting is also fantastic.
Uh-huh.
But do you use any, and you said you do manipulations, so it's,
Yeah.
I feel okay asking.
Yeah, no, ask whatever that's
Do
fine.
you manipulate the back at all? It almost seems like it has a soft glow.
Uh-huh. No, I don't. Thank
Okay.
you. No, I really do focus though on the background, and the two cameras that I use a Nikon D5, and I have I was basically shot only almost with a 500 lens, the f4. And then I bought the Sony system. I have an A9 and an A7, and I've been using that pretty much most of the time this last year. The A9 that I'm using, I use the 1:400 with a doubler on it. And I was really curious when I bought it. I thought, I can't use a doubler on my 500 lens on the Nikon. It just never worked right. You know, I just absolutely, 1.4 was like the most on a teleconverter that I ever got to work well on my Nikon system. So then I bought the 1.4 and the 2x on my Sony, and I am blown away that I can shoot wildlife and the birds like a peregrine with a 2x. I mean, the reality is, yes, it slows it down, but it doesn't slow it down near as much as it slows it down on a Nikon. And it has the downside on the whole Sony system for me is that it doesn't have really strong, in my opinion, low light. Once I had the D5, I mean, the low light capabilities are just phenomenal. On the Sony, not so much, but I use it when I'm using the 2x on it. The f-stop only goes down, the smallest is the f11. So that's, you know, but it still seems to allow me to have that creamy background, provided I have the right background in the first place. It seems to work really well. But I don't, in terms of, I don't manipulate, I don't use flash, and I don't manipulate. I do differentiate, like on my website where I'm doing, quote, fine art type images, I make sure that people know that there's been manipulation in that sense. So if I'm doing like the IBIS, you know, I make sure people know, because I don't want people to say, oh, wow, how did she do it? And then look at the picture and go, wow, this is really, she's done something that, you know, that's not right. It's fine. We can all do whatever we want, but I think it's just what's very important as a wildlife photographer is to tell people what I've done. You know, I make sure that they're clear that this picture has been clearly manipulated. I don't want to have that gray area, because I don't know if you have heard about some of the people out there. There's been some really unethical photographers. There's been people that have actually won the Wildlife Photographer of the Year contest. Let me think, probably 3 or 4 years ago. Time escapes me these days. But anyway, somebody said they photographed the snow leopard, but they actually, it wasn't in the wild. They actually had whoever it was, whoever helped them, he came forward and ratted the guy out, and it wasn't a wild animal. So it was very discouraging. But point being is I want to make sure that I'm very ethical on my images, because you don't want that reputation to precede ourselves, and people say, wow, you know, that person, she did this and she did that. So anyways, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, thank you.
So
Any other question? Yes, please.
You talked about having like your 500 lens or 400 lens or whatever, and then your landscape lens. And I don't really know what a landscape lens is. Is it a wide angle or what is it?
I love like my let me see, 24-70. I may use a wide angle, but the 24-70 for me, because I'm not really I mean, as you saw, I do some landscape images, but I identified one of them being done on an iPhone. But the point is that the 24-70 is versatile for me, and it's a sharp one. It's my Nikon lens, and it's sharp, and that's kind of what I use. And so it's a short lens versus my big girl lens.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
How about tripod use?
Good question. I have used a monopod for many years. When I use my 500 or my 2-500, I use a monopod because it's very heavy. The gear's heavy, and I'm not going to be sexist and say, oh, it's because I'm a woman. It's not. But I had shoulder surgery about 8 years ago. So that's my reason. No, that's my excuse. I should have gotten my strength back up. But I struggle with it, you know, and it stabilizes me. So that's part of it. When I'm shooting my Sony, I shoot and handhold that. The gear is a little heavier because I use the battery pack on the bottom. And so it's not as light as, you know, everybody says, oh, Sony gear is really light. But, you know, when it gets heavier as you add stuff to it, the truth be known. And so it's not as light as you think, but I can handhold it. But I really love, and I do recommend, if you can use a monopod, it's awesome because you can move around really fast. You can turn around and look at something, or you can track something easily on a monopod. When you have a tripod, you're not that mobile, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
yeah, so.
What's the brand that you like?
I love Really Right Stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, if you guys haven't used it or seen it, one of the things that one of the best ball heads, and again, these are investments, you know, when you buy these things, yeah, they cost more money, but I think you pay for what you get. I subscribe to that. But I love the design for the monopod. The monopod head on the Really Right Stuff is amazing. It's so well designed. And I had seen somebody else using one, and I'd asked questions probably 6-7 years ago, and I had the head that I had was always rolling, you know, it was always moving, you know, you'd all of a sudden with a big lens, and that's the worst because your fingers get pinched, or depending on if you have the flip switch on it, you know, where you lock your camera in the plate, that I used to get my fingers caught in that and be like, dang, I've got, you know, anyways, I tried out Really Right Stuff, and I never have looked back, and I'll never have to buy another one. It'll last me the rest of my life.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
How do you handle traveling to places like Africa with the weight limitations on the airplane?
Yeah. Oh, Jerry. Yes. That's a lovely question. I'm always scared. Well, you know, I have been there now several times, and I hope and pray they don't ever want to weigh my bag, my carry-on bag. But the last time I went was the best time, and I'll tell you why. I had the Sony, so I had the A9 and an A7. I had a 1:400. I had the 24-70, and I think I had one more lens. I think I had one more. Maybe not. Maybe not. But the point is, I had that in a think tank rolling bag. And it's the smaller one. It's not the big, it's not I think it's the Airporter is the larger one, which is what I had to take for my Nikon. Anyways, but this bag was so cool because I could hoist it up into the overhead with not a problem. It was great. It was compact, it fit in there, and I never got stopped. I never got checked. My last time when I went with the Nikon gear only, I had the 500, and so unfortunately with that 500 lens and the camera body, I couldn't get it into a bag that was smaller than that. I think it's called International. I did carry it in, and they didn't stop me. So I think part of the advantage, at least in Kenya, in my experience, is that they know a lot of people are coming to photograph, and they didn't hassle me. But I can't tell you that's always going to be the case, or another country. I mean, I would be adamant that they wouldn't take my gear. I thought I was going to be separated from it. My last time I was there, I got a little nervous because they were really full, and they were asking everybody that had carry-ons, come on, you know, if you could go ahead and check it and all of that. And I'm looking like, oh, no, I don't want to check it. But I didn't have to, so.
Yeah, a lot of them are now at a 7 kilo, like 15 pound
Yes,
limit.
they are. They are. Now, when I went to Kenya, one of the things what's one of the reasons on my trip, and what keeps the cost down, so I'll be real honest, how I'm able to keep the cost down is we drive from point to point. I love it because we get to see the villages as we drive through. We get to see the countryside. And we can take our gear without any hassle. When you're doing the smaller planes, some of them are, it's really restrictive, and they really do crack down on the weight. So you might end up with one pair of underwear and one pair of shorts and one top and your camera gear, and that's it, right? Because you're going to have to leave something behind in order to get on that plane.
Yeah.
So, but that's how it's a trade-off.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
What about your shutter speeds that you try to? You said you.
So you've
Yeah.
got to have a shutter that's going to measure up to the speed of that falcon with that big lens. So the first thing I would tell you is that in all cases, if you have a 400 millimeter lens, the minimum that you're going to have on a shutter speed is 1/400. Okay, that kind of comes with it goes with the length of the lens. But if you're shooting wildlife, then you're going to at least double that, if not more. So for a 400, at least an 800, and I would tell you more than likely you want to be at 1,000th or even 1,600. When you go to the peregrine world and your early morning, I'm cranked up because I need my IS or my shutter speed to be at least 2,400, if not 3,200. You know, it has to be high because those birds are flying by you so fast. And now, as these chicks are now maturing and really figuring out that they can go into dives and they play and do all this crazy stuff, they're flying fast now. I mean, they flew fast before, but they were more uncoordinated. Now they're really, you know, they're learning how to really be fighter pilots. So my shutter speed based on the animals, if it was a bear, do I need it at 3,200? No. But I would tell you I would have, if I had my 500, I have it at least at 1,000 to make sure I've got it sharp. And then you have to determine too, because your aperture, you might have it down at f4, but if it's a bear, if it's a larger animal, you need more depth of field on it. So I wouldn't be at f4 on a bear. I'd probably be at f8 so that I have enough depth of field that his head and his body is going to be in focus, unless I'm looking nose to nose and but anyways.
And you run.
Yeah, no
Great,
run.
thank you.
Never run from a bear. What else, guys?
How do you deal with low light?
I use my Nikon D5. I'm telling you, yeah, it does make a difference. That's where the cameras, you know, and the new Canon that's out, I understand that the low light capability, I don't know if anybody's gotten one, but I understand it's really great. Sony haven't gotten there yet with that A9, and the A9's amazing for tracking on regular light. It's mind-blowing how quick it is to track. But I can tell you on low light, I'll go with my D5 any day. And that's because it's able to go, and I don't know if I brought it, I don't think I put it in this. Maybe I did, I'll look and see. Anyways, there's a picture that I took. I was up in Central California photographing the endangered kit foxes up there, and they're just amazing. And they don't necessarily read my memos. We went out there early morning, knew where the den was, watched the parents. They sat out of the den, out of the burrow or whatever you want to call it, about probably 50 yards, not even 50, maybe 25 yards from where the den was. So we set up a little ways. I was with a girlfriend. We set up a little ways away so we didn't scare anybody, but we watched and we watched and we sat there and watched. And I took lots of pictures of the parents, and they slept and they kept an eye on the babies, but nobody came out. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon, now mind you, we were there at 6 a.m. About 2 p.m., one of the babies stuck his little head out, and mom must have given him the look like, get your self back in that hole. And he went right back in. He didn't come out. So we knew we were in the right place. We knew there were babies there. Stayed there until it got dark. finally, I mean, and I'm stubborn, you know, it's like I've spent this many hours sitting out here for these guys. I'm staying here till they come out. But at that point it was dark and I'm like, forget it, let's go. I was all dejected and depressed. And I'm folding up, and I had a tripod because we were sitting out for so long. Folded up the tripod, got ready to put it over my shoulder, and I see the parent move, and I'm like, my friend, I said, Lori, stop, don't move. And she's like, what? Don't move, just wait. And the parent came back walking, and of course it's dark, but you can see movement, right? But I can see it because my eyes have adjusted, and it goes to the over by the burrow, and guess what? All of the kits come out. There were 6 kits in that burrow. And they come out, and I'm like, son of a gun. So I throw back down the tripod. I start with my ISO at 4,000, 8,000, 16,000, keep going. And I mean, I'm take a picture, and you know, and you can't see because it's dark. So I'm not getting my focus. I mean, it doesn't do me any good to have an autofocus because it's dark and camera can't even see it. So I have to flip it manual and pray to God that I'm getting it in focus through my viewfinder. I go all the way up to 32,000 ISO. And I don't even care at this point because, gosh darn it, I'm going to get a picture before I leave. So I take pictures. Finally, I get this thing operating because I was like all shook up because this is happening so suddenly. And we took pictures, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what proved the value of paying all that money for that camera is those pictures, because the pictures actually, for what I was taking, I thought they were just simply going to be, you know, documentary shots, and not even quality, but they're going to be at least a picture of what I saw. Anyways, I have some pictures. I've actually sold a couple of the images. Yes, did I use a denoise program? Yes, I did. But I got to tell you, I got pictures that worked, and that was with the D5. So there you go. So it can happen. It just you have to have the right
program. What denoising program do you like?
You know what? I love DxO. It used to be Nick, and it became DxO. I don't know if you know the story. Nick sold it to Google. Google sold it to DxO. DxO is a French company. And actually, for a little while, I was ready to change over. I was kind of like, it's okay. They're denoise. Initially, I thought they had the best denoise. Then I think people caught up with them and have exceeded them. But this last update that they had on their program is really good. It's really good. So,
are you thinking about the D6 at all?
No, I don't need another camera right now. My husband will divorce me if I do that. No, I think that I'm happy. You know what? I have a camera that I love. If the D5, I mean, it has a lot of shutter actuations on it, but it still works fine. So I'll keep using it. It's a great camera. I have nothing about it. Am I dissatisfied? So have you got the D6? Anybody? No? Anybody got the D6?
I'm just curious about it.
Yeah. I'm not usually out there to get the latest and greatest, although I was really swooned over the Sony. I mean, I was like, wow, they can track birds like that easily. And I had a lot of friends that actually went over, sold all of their Canon gear, all of their Nikon gear, and bought it. And they haven't looked back, except that I know for a fact that the ISO, like for example, in Kenya, we saw a lioness at night on the road when we were coming back up to our lodge. She had 3 babies, and they were young. They were tiny, tiny little babies in the middle of the road. And I had my Sony, and I'm telling you, if I had my Nikon, I would have gotten incredible pictures, and the Sony couldn't handle it. Just couldn't handle it. It was just heartbreaking, but I did get to see it. Mom picked up the kits in her mouth, you know, and and the one of them had just like a typical cat, you know, there's always one that's independent. One's running up the road, and Mom's trying to, you know, gather them all up and get them out of the road. So anyways.
Karen, on those photos where you went up to, I think you said 3,200.
Yes. 32, no. 32,000.
1,000, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
So on the shutter,
yes.
What was the lowest you were able to get?
Oh my goodness. The shutter on that was about, I think I was shooting at like maybe 400th of a second.
Okay.
It was slow. And that's why where the tripod, you know, that's where the tripod, it was fortunate that I had the tripod because typically I wouldn't, but sitting out in the heat, because we were literally sitting out in the sun for all of those hours. It was over 12 hours of sitting out there.
It's and.
Yeah, but that's wildlife, right?
Yeah.
It was worth it. Anybody else? Well, if you think of any more, I'm going to go ahead and keep going, and please feel free. Don't feel like you can't ask me. All right. So tip number 7. Aha! Speaking of the devil.
Oh.
Okay, endangered kit fox, and this was the one at 32,000. And I actually have one of the kits, just a portrait, and it was as sharp as it could be. But that was taken. I mean, 32,000. That's pretty crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. So taking pictures that tell a story. How can, you know, look and see what can tell a story. The moose, the meese. This was one of my very first published images. This was in a Photography Today. I think it was Photography Today. Anyways, first published image in a magazine. That was exciting. And that was up in the Tetons. And these are wild horses up outside of Carson City. So gestures and action tell a story as well. So I think it's really important, especially with wildlife, you know, how the connection, as I mentioned, having that connection with their eyes is really important. Having them be a connection with each other.
Yeah, my neighbor's really.
And this one, what do they eat? Well, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this was in Kenya. And again, this was really challenging light with the Sony. That was, so you can see there's noise there, but it was what I was going to get with it. And that's really important, you guys, when you're shooting. You know, I had a client, we had gone up to Yellowstone, and as I said, I know, because I've experimented and been very fortunate with my D5, I know what it can do with ISO. And so that camera, is it great to go to 28,000 or 32? You know, no, not necessarily, but sometimes that's what you have to do, and sometimes that's the only way you will get a picture. But you need to know the limits of your camera. My point is, my client, she goes, what's your settings? She was shooting a different camera, different brand, and a great camera at that. But I know for a fact, and I knew it at the time, I said, be careful on your ISO. Your ISO is not going to go up. If you go to 4,000, you're going to start to have it break down. It doesn't do that. So don't try it, because you're going to be disappointed in your images, right? Anyways, she didn't take that advice. She decided, she goes, it'll work. And she was very disappointed in some of the pictures. But so you have to know how far your cameras can go when you're going to do a low light situation. And this is, everybody knows what chimping is, right? Or if you don't, you know, it's looking on the back, or it's looking through your viewfinder to see what your pictures look like, right? Don't chimp until you go home. Do it once when you start. Just make sure all your buttons are set, your picture looks right, you didn't miss something. I know on my Sony, it's very easy to hit a dial, and I've got big hands. That's why I have the battery pack. So I've hit dials not even thinking about it, you know? So it's very important to check it, but don't chimp all the time, because you're gonna miss a shot, especially with wildlife. So for example, this picture, I'm gonna show you a series here. These are the two of the adult foxes, and they were walking. And this one on the left swooped up on the right one, but they looked fine. And then, and I just kept shooting. All of a sudden, the one on the left, the female just lunges for the male. I don't know, she must have had a bad morning, but she lunges and bites him like this. And then it was just like pandemonium.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
All, I mean, and it just was like, what is happening here?
Oh my gosh.
Damn, great.
Yeah. So there you go. And if you're chimping, you're going to miss the shots, right?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this was all a series right then, and it was within seconds.
Oh my gosh.
So when you arrive at a location, things to think about, you know, first, what's your background? What's your light? Where's the wind? Okay, then you need to be quiet. With wildlife, it's not like you're shooting a landscape. Landscapes, you can talk. It's not going anywhere. But when you got animals, and some of them are very, very timid. Some animals are less. Some, you know, you have to know. But I'm going to tell you, you know, the bears are way the heck out in the field. Yeah, you can talk. But if I'm shooting foxes, and you're next to me, I'm going to tell you to be quiet because they're very skittish and they get, you know, and you're not going to photograph them. I had people come when I was photographing them, and again, I'll tell you about that in a minute, but I had people come up during the time I was photographing them this year, and it's like, oh, what you're photographing? Oh, wow, there's foxes. Da, 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 da. You know, big, guess what? Foxes are gone. It's over with. So making sudden movements with any animals, with eagles, you get too close to an eagle, there's a certain distance that you can photograph an eagle. But let me tell you, if you're right up on them and you jump out of your car to photograph them, you better have your camera setting ready and expect to get one shot because they will fly away just as quickly. You don't want to be moving around. Get yourself set up and be quiet and watch. Don't be busy talking with your friend because guess what? You're going to miss the shot. Don't be looking at your phone. I can take pictures of people all the time when this happens. And these are my friends, so I can give them a hard time. But they'll be looking at their phone, waiting for the peregrines. They're not here yet. Let me look at my phone. And as they're doing it, because a lot of times you don't hear them, right? Birds are quiet most of the time. Peregrines will be noisy if they've got food, or the chicks will be noisy. But they'll be flying by, and my friends are like, I've got my phone. Be observant when you're out there, you know, and again, that being quiet is part of that. And you might get to see fun stuff. Yeah. This was on a foggy morning with my foxes. And this is another series. Okay, so here I am on the cliffs of San Pedro, and you can't see, the peregrines are down below usually. This is a parent, this is an adult bringing back food for the chicks. The chicks have, as I mentioned, they fledged out of where their little nesting area is, and they climb around, they climb up towards the top of the cliff, so they're frequently pretty close in proximity to the people watching them. But you can't see the parents. They catch a bird or something and they come up on the cliffs. So here was a lucky shot. This is the, let me see if I can tell. It's one of the adults. I can't tell right now if it's a female or male. This year, the male and female look very similar, and the band on the leg identifies the different, you know, which parent. So anyways, this is coming up, delivering a bird, arriving on the cliff. Here is the chick is on the right, running over to get the bird, and at the same time as the chick, the second parent arrives, and this parent wants the bird. Wow. Now, here comes the action.
Golly.
And then, oops, that's that. This was 4 seconds apart, those shots. And there was more in there. I have more shots than that. But anyways, 4 seconds of peregrine action. So you never know. But you could have been sitting there looking at your phone and missed all of that, which some of my friends did. So, and the next tip is practice and patience. You know, all of this, these are tips, and hopefully I've made all these mistakes. I can tell you that I will still make them again, but hopefully these tips and these ideas will give you some, you know, some concept and some help in terms of maybe not making the same mistakes, because I've made them and you don't have to this time. But lots of practice and having lots of patience. Patience comes in parcel and post with practice in order to get good wildlife pictures.
Is that from Safari West?
No, that was in Kenya.
Wow.
Yeah, looking with his little flower behind the ear. Oh, excuse me. So your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. I thought that was very reassuring when I read that. So let's see. So to give you an idea, my fox, I talk about these. I've entitled my project "The Fox Chronicles," and it's 10 years in the making. So I have been shooting them for the last 10 years when it's the time when they have the babies. This year was very special. I started photographing them in February, and I was really excited about it because I wanted to shoot them before I went to Costa Rica. And then I was going to be gone for 2.5 weeks. And I thought, well, when I come back, because a lot happens in a short amount of time with any baby animals. You know, the parents want to get them to the place where they can be self-sufficient, that they can go off on their own. I mean, that's what all these animals do, just like you guys. Only you do it in the 20 years or 18 years. They do it in, 2 months. So anyways, this year was really special because as it happened, there were 3 females and 1 male. I don't know if the male was daddy for all of them. I'm guessing he probably was. And it's possible that the 2 females, the younger females, possibly were offspring of the older female, possibly. And the reason I know it's an older female, she was there last year, and she's very distinguishable because her ear last year, she got into some sort of fight, I'm guessing possibly a coyote, because one of the kids disappeared that night, and the next morning when we saw her, her ear was all torn off. So we know her, she's recognizable. So anyways, so this year there were 3, and we counted a minimum of 9 babies. So it was very exciting. We were all gung-ho, and it was exciting. And COVID happened. And I was able, because it's local, and I can walk there if I choose to, was able to go because nobody was there. And I was out by myself photographing, and I actually did 100 consecutive days of photographing foxes. So it was pretty amazing. It was very unique, very special, and amazing, to say the least, to see these foxes. And they've all dispersed now. The final shots that I actually did was the one where I saw the baby that had been killed. And it was very tragic, and it was also very interesting in the sense, I mean, it sounds cold, but it was interesting. What happened was the dad stayed with the baby. It was killed in the middle of the road, and it sat it dragged it to the middle of the road and sat with it for probably a half hour. And then it dragged its body over to the side of the road and sat there, and I photographed it there. And then it picked the body up and it walked down a ways and went into the bushes because it got spooked by people. And then it left the body in the brush, and I went over and examined it because I wanted to see. At first I thought it was the adult female, and it turned out to be a kit, and it turned out to be a female kit. But it was good that I knew, was able to identify it. But then the male crossed the road, so it was all scary because I thought, oh gosh, it's going to get hit too. But then it came back, and it actually took the carcass and took it back up to the den. So I contacted a fox specialist. She does rescue and is connected with people on the East Coast. And she was telling me that they have seen several different scenarios similar to this. One, the fox potentially could have been a meal because, it is a meal. I mean, food is food, and it's hard to feed babies. And so it's very possible it was a meal. So it's kind of the last gift of that fox, I guess, in one respect. And then they've also seen adults that have had either their mate or a baby killed and never touch it, never eat it. They've taken it back to the den, almost like they've showed the kids, like, almost like this is what could happen to you. And that sounds crazy, but I know I've watched these animals for so long. I know that they teach them. I've watched parents teach the kids different things. It's very interesting. It was 100 days, consecutive days of photographing these. I'm hoping to put all of it into a book and share it. So that's my hope down the road. Lots of pictures of foxes now. So move yourself around, as I mentioned, get high, get low, turn around. Again, wildlife rarely reads my memos. Maybe they'll read yours, I don't know. But turn around anytime you're out there in the field because you never know what you might see. And maybe that shot is better. And when I refer to that, when I took my Audubon picture, We had amazing scenery. What happened was it was very overcast, stormy, really heavy black clouds in the sky. It was getting cold. I had a workshop going on and my people were getting chilled. And I said, just give it another 10 minutes because those birds are going to lift off before it gets dark. They're going to lift off, you guys. And when they do, it could be really nice if we get some light. And literally I said that, and all of a sudden the light broke through the clouds. So there was an amazing sunset. And just at that same time, the birds lifted off. And that was beautiful in front of me. I mean, people got amazing pictures. But what I had seen behind me was this particular location in which the trees framed the scene. And I will show it to you in a little bit. But that picture, I turned around and took that picture, and that's the one that won an Audubon. And again, I knew when I took that picture, I didn't know I was going to win anything, but I knew it was something special. And you know, you just get that feeling sometimes. You get the little tinglies, like, wow, this is something different. This is something special. So look around, because you never know what might be behind you. And it could be a bear, okay? It could be. Looking down on an animal doesn't create a connection with the animal, and you want to create that relationship. And again, select your background by moving around, because sometimes moving to the left or to the right by a foot will make all the difference in your background, and it will make all the difference in your picture. This picture, I moved in a sheet hanging behind it, like Joel Sartori's, where he has his wonderful the ARC project. This is natural background. This picture, I moved again a foot over on the Peregrines, and the dark shadows behind it, that's what I got, a nice black background. You guys can shoot wildlife at home. You can add bird feeders, add a water source if you do bird feeders as well.
That's a good one.
You know, they love to come in your backyard with a water source. You can do a little fountain thing. It doesn't have to be a fountain, but a little bird bath. A 70 to 200 millimeter lens is a great focal length for a backyard. Again, you can vary the lens. You can do a wide angle, telephoto, take it at different times of the day. Overcast days are also really nice for showing the details on a bird. Shows you the feathers. So don't get discouraged when it's overcast. Sometimes those are the best days, because you know, when you get, like now, the weather's tricky. We get down here a lot of June gloom. We're close to the ocean. And I appreciate that, because when it gets sunny, first of all, it gets really harsh. 9 o'clock, birds start getting blown out, or the animals get blown out. It's too contrasty for me a lot of the time. So I appreciate these overcast June gloom. You can use rim light, and you can use you can create silhouettes at sunset. So be creative with that wildlife at your house. And take lots of pictures and videos. Okay, so take double the amount of memory cards that when you go out, take a lot. You don't want to be short. Take extra batteries in case you stay longer, because you know, I have been down to my last, breath on a camera where I've stayed all day, right till that last second. You don't want to run out of a battery. Use your phone to take pictures and videos. And I'm telling you guys, nowadays these cameras, and it doesn't have to be an iPhone. I use an iPhone. So those of you that don't, I don't want you to feel excluded, but I got to tell you, the videos are pretty amazing. So take pictures, take selfies of yourselves when you're someplace unique, and take videos, because they're fun to come back to. Wildlife is unexpected. They don't read memos. The little things often make all the difference. And again, like the owls, took a bunch of pictures waiting for them to look at me. This, I had my camera in my lap and ran across in front of me in early morning. It was before sunrise, that blue light in the early morning, and just stood by the road and looked back at me, and I was able to fire this off. One shot. That was it. On this picture, I said, don't talk to each other. Okay, we're in Boston, Apache, and we had our camera set up, and this morning we set it on tripod because it was very early. Wanted to just sit there because we got there way before sunrise, waiting, and usually the birds take off after sunrise. Well, this was pre-sunrise, and the birds decided to take off. And the people that I was with, there were some friends of mine were talking, and guess what? They missed the shot. So be prepared. So there's lots of books on composition, and I'm just going to cover some things quickly on this to think about. Try not to center your subject. Use the rule of thirds to create more tension. I'll show you that what it looks like. Patterns and repetition work. You try leading lines with roads or animals. Diagonal lines create great movement. Fill the frame. One of the things I think, and I see this with people that do pictures too, or portraitures or group pictures. You know, take a group picture and people tend to stand way the heck back. Get closer. It's okay. I mean, if it's a bear, don't get close. But the point is try to fill that frame and make that frame work for you. Watch out for triangles in the corners, and I'll show you what that looks like. Move to eliminate those. Eyes, again, should be sharp, and catch lights are important. So here's the rule of thirds, and what that really is saying is try to center, if you've got an animal and his head and the eyes would be on the cross in right here. This creates more tension than if you have it in the middle, okay? Have an animal walk into the frame. When you have them walking out of the frame, what it makes you feel like, wait, you need space in front of you. It doesn't feel right. It gets awkward. So give them space to move out. Have lines in it, making it, you know, more interesting. Here's repetition, moving back, giving it a sense of depth of field. Just like with people, you don't want to cut people off, say at the wrists. You don't want to really crop the limbs on animals. If you're going to do something like this, it would be better to do a portrait, get the headshot, versus just the legs cut off. Be better to have the full legs. This doesn't show it that well on the screen, but he has full legs. Diagonal lines in a picture. Reflections are always nice. I love reflections. This was taken at a zoo. If some of you may be familiar with Jay Mizell, he's a New York street photographer. He is a character and a half. I attended a workshop and he was on the faculty, and he would sit in the back of the room and we all had to show our work in the afternoon, and he'd sit in the back, and I swear every person's pictures, what's that crap in the corner? And that, I just remember that. He always would he said, you don't even know you do it. He goes, but look at your corner. You have these little triangles. Notice the shadows. Can you guys see this with the map, with the pointer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I wasn't sure if it showed up. Okay, so you can see up here another triangle. So there it is without it, by just either moving or, it's just a different image. It cleans it up. So just something to be aware of. Just think of Jay and that New York accent, which I can't even pretend to do. And once you know the rules of composition, you can break them, okay? You can decide, this is my picture, I like it. This was one where it's very centered, I like it, it's me. Learn from your mistakes. Here's a peregrine, tried to land and missed the landing. So I want to show you guys something. This will just take a minute. I think it's really kind of fun, and every time I tell people about it, most everybody hasn't seen it. So I'm going to show you. Can everybody, you've got your phones with you? Everybody got them? Go to photos on your phone, on the iPhone. Go, just tap your photos. Down at the very bottom, you're going to see photos for you, album search. Everybody see that on the bottom? Tap for you. Now, do you guys see memories? There'll be, if you kind of scroll it, you're going to see maybe 5 or 6 different memories. Just put your just go ahead and tap the first one. My first one happens to be Grand Teton 2015. So I tap it.
Stories? Maybe? No.
It's under it. You go for you, and then it's under memories.
Don't have it. Have time lapse, slow mo, video, and photo.
No, you're not in the right place, Dick.
I have the well.
Do you have an iPhone?
I have an iPhone. I
Okay.
have the,
You're in the camera. You're in the camera. She wants you to go to.
where am I supposed to be?
And
No,
photos.
photos.
Or
Oh,
gallery?
Okay.
Okay, go to photos, and then go to For You. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see photos, For You, album, search.
So it's making a slideshow.
Okay, so hang on. So you go to For You, and then you go to Memories, and there's going to be different memories. Click on one of them. If you click on it, you're going to discover that it's a video.
Well,
You all see it?
Photos doesn't work for me. I've got video, but I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Works
Yeah.
for me.
I got
my
it.
finger doesn't. It can scroll through here.
Mine is scrolling itself.
So
It's the one that has the several different colors on it. It's like your languages, photos, Facebook, whatever you have. And photos has,
Can you see that?
no. Okay, you're on your camera right now.
Yeah.
So you want to go to your photos.
right.
Go
Oh.
back
But
out.
not in your camera, Dick. Not
Yeah,
in your camera.
Go
It's a
back out.
separate-
Go back to your main screen.
Yep, you go.
Go back to your main screen. Main screen.
Yes.
Now
To the
we're
window?
go to photos, which should be like, can you see it? The little flower star photos,
There you go.
where you store your photos.
Yeah, well, I have having vision problems here, but yes, I'm getting there. I saw it.
Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. You go to photos. Then at the bottom, you go to For You. Everybody find that?
Yeah.
Okay, then go to Memories. And there's going to be maybe 4 or 5 different memories. Tap on the first one, the big one. And you're going to discover it's a video.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you go ahead and you see the little arrow. Go ahead and play the video for just a moment. And then it's going to have, is it working for you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. At the top, there's going to, you'll see edit. Do you see edit on the right top of the screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, click on that. Now you have a selection, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see you can click on title, and you can click on title, and you can title that video to whatever you want it to be.
Oh.
So you can title it, my Grand Teton, maybe mine will be Wilderness at Heart Teton Trip, whatever. Okay, then you see the next one, there's a title image. You can actually select a title image, and you can pick one, and then you can go to the next one. This is the fun part here. The next is photos and videos. Click on that. It's going to show you all of the pictures that are currently in this video that you're looking at. They're going to have a check mark on it. It also is giving you the selection of what other pictures you might want to put in it. Do you all follow me here?
Now what, wait,
What's that?
you title image?
Yeah, so the title, where it said the title,
Yeah.
you
I
can,
got that.
okay. And then the next one would be title image. You can select an image to be your main image for it.
Right.
And then there's photos and videos. Click on that. And there's a plus.
Further down. Okay, I didn't go down that.
So when you,
Okay.
so when you click on that, there's
Got
going to be a plus, you'll see the plus mark, the plus sign. When you click on that, it's on the bottom left.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then it's going to show you, you're going to see what pictures have already been checked that are already in the video. You can add them, or you can keep them, or you can delete them by unchecking them. You can also add other pictures. Say you like another picture better, or you want more pictures, you can add them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then once you do that, go down to the music. And the music has soundtracks available. You can pick any of those, or free soundtracks. What's nice about those is you'll never get into trouble for using them, right? And there's all different kinds. There's ones happy ones, there's moody ones, whatever. So you can pick music, or even better, you can go down to the scroll to the bottom of that selection, and you're going to say you will see your library. your library will connect you to any songs that you have on your phone. So you can take one of your songs, you know, I have my country western stuff that I like, and I can have Blake Shelton singing to me in my song, in my video. But point is, you can pick your music, and now you can play the video from start to finish with that music and see if you like it. If you think it's good, you like it, perfect. If you need to edit it, go back into pictures or whatever you need to edit. Once you hit done, you can upload it. You can hit the upload button on the bottom left, and you can send it to Facebook. You can send it to friends. You can airdrop it. You can email it. And then one thing you want to do is save to files, and that's also available. So save it to files, and you can keep it on your iPhone so you can share it with people.
Wow.
So isn't that, I mean, how many, did you all know that?
No.
I'm going to show you now what that looks like, because here's the thing. I'm going to stop the share on this for a second, and I'm going to share screen. Where is it? I thought it was still here. Hang on. Wait a minute. I know. Wait a minute. It's got, oh, is that it? No, that is, okay, sorry. Let's see. Stop share. I saved it for us, so I wouldn't have to look for it. Well, I might have to look for it, so hang on. There it is. Can you see that? Can you guys see this?
No.
No.
Okay, hang on. Let me figure out. Now, do you see it?
Nope.
No.
No? Okay. Huh, okay. I wonder what happened here. Let me go back to share screen again. Zoom. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now do you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So wait. Well, come here. Come here. Let's see. Let's make this big. This is all new to me. Here, we're showing my Facebook page. Okay. This is all done on my iPhone, guys, in about 5 minutes. There. So who knew that you could do that, right? Isn't that amazing? That's
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, how in the heck? So that you know that, you can take your iPhone, you can create a video, you can upload it, like I said. I have used it for my trips. They do composites. If you look at your screens almost every day, if you just take a quick look on your on the For You section, it changes. Sometimes it's only 1 day of pictures, and it might be 2015. Sometimes it's a couple weeks. Sometimes it's even a year of whatever subject they pick. I don't know where Facebook gets all of it, but I tell you, there's some good stuff in there. I was able to do my pictures and do a whole little sequence of stuff from Kenya and put it on my big screen TV downstairs when I had the people come back over. And I got to tell you, it looked amazing. It looked amazing. I mean, I'm not a videographer. I just use my iPhone. So I thought I'd share it with you because you never know. You might get some use out of it. And you can shoot wildlife with this, right?
Very cool.
So I get my 600 on the list.
We'll figure out how to do it on Android.
And I think it's there. I think I just don't have one to be able to tell you the steps.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Yeah, just check it out. And then
No, I just did the video on my Android,
Yeah?
and there's not an easy way to add music.
Oh, okay. There might, maybe it's hidden in the menu, so you might check and see.
Yeah, I'll check and see, but
Yeah.
anyway, but I was able to select photos and then have it play it in the video loop.
There you go. Yay! See what we learned? So here is my last part of the presentation, and I just want to give you some ideas of what I do. I do the unique boutique all-inclusive photography workshop with special events and guest photographers. I do Kenya, Grand Tetons, Boston, Apache in New Mexico, and I'm adding venues. Again, this year was going to be like the breakaway into Costa Rica. So we'll see what happens next year. I just am not committing to as much because I don't know where we're going to be. So I'm kind of waiting. But I have trips, like I said, to Grand Tetons. And I do have a trip scheduled this year. It's the September 21st through 25th. It's it's a small group, so it's not going to be a big group. It'll be a maximum in the vehicle of 5 plus me. It'll be 6. And we're staying at the Spring Hill Suites, which is in Jackson, right near the square. And they're doing everything. I mean, you can read about what they're doing. It's a beautiful lodge, beautiful place to stay, but they're doing everything as far as making sure that the protocol is being followed through with COVID. And we also have an eco tour trip scheduled. And again, they're doing small trips and have gotten themselves all pulled together for COVID as well. And then it includes meals and all of that. My trips I've tried to do to keep them affordable and reasonable and also all inclusive. Once you get to Jackson, everything is there for you.
Wow.
And this is the trip, this is the picture I was telling you about. This is the Audubon picture that won.
Wow.
And it was just turn around. I turned around. That was all it took. You know?
Wow.
So it's beautiful. It was a spectacular moment.
Wow.
And I do Boston Apache, so I am going in January. I've gone there now for the last, 12 years, 13 years, I don't know, something like that. Been there a lot. And again, it's all inclusive. I pick you up in Albuquerque, bring you back to Albuquerque to fly out, and it includes your lodging, meals. We have a private falconer shoot, which is a blast. We go out on the desert, and I've worked with Matt for many years now. He brings his birds out there and flies them, and we are able to photograph them. And he's got Aplomado falcon. He has just amazing Harris hawks, and he brings them out. One of them usually sits on the perch inside of his truck, and he meets us out there, and the bird rides along. It's very cute. So again, that's a small group. And let's see, and then Kenya would be next year in August, and that is a really amazing trip. It's 13 days, and it does what makes it really special for this price. I mean, I won't say it's not a lot of money, it's a lot of money, but it does include your airfare, nearly, I think all but one meal, your lodging, and it's an amazing, the lodges, if you look at my website, I'll have it up probably next week where we're staying, and they're spectacular. They're not, you're not staying at Motel 6, you're really staying at some amazing places, and it's tremendous. So I'd welcome anybody on that trip. And that's that. Back to questions. Pass the beer now. So anybody have any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's so fun.
Very fun.
Really good.
Who knew we'd be doing Zoom, right? Oh my goodness. But it's good. But if you have any questions or any questions about wildlife photography, you're welcome to shoot me an email. It's on here, Karen@wilderness@heart.com. And if you're interested in any trips, you can go to my website. And thank you, Betsy, for inviting me and for you guys having me. This is really been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, thank
Thanks,
you.
Karen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Follow
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Early, sometime next year.
I'd love to.
Here, you can visit your brother.
Yes. I would. I may never leave. No. I would
They
love
can
to.
teach us.
Yeah. That would be great. Well, I really enjoyed it, and I hope you all have fun. Go out there and shoot, even if you're just walking around your neighborhood right now. There's
Yeah.
things to shoot. So
Good ideas from you. Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you
So
so much.
much.
Buddy. And Tamara, if you want to contact me, you're welcome to just go through my email, and we'll definitely, connect if you want to talk about Kenya.
Sounds fun. Maybe we'll meet up.
I'd love to. Thanks, you guys. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Okay.
Bye, all.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Miss you all.
Bye.